Hello. In the Crown of Aragon 639 years ago, it was May 14th, 1387. My name is Jonathan Seyfried. I'm a PhD candidate in history at the University of New Mexico, and this is the Historian's Notebook, a podcast about how history gets made. Season 1 is titled Multcara Companiona. We're looking at a document from each day of the first year of the reign of King Joan I of Aragon and Queen Violant de Bar. Let's begin today's document. There's a lot to like about today's document. It is one that has already been transcribed by Troubadour and Bailiff of Lleida in their document collection of documents that are about music and minstrels in the reign of Joan, and I think it goes up through Marti. So there's this book of, well, is it a book? I think it's actually like a long section of like a journal or something like that, where basically Troubadour and Bailiff of Lleida, they gathered together a couple hundred documents from the reign of Joan and Violant that had to do with music and troubadours and minstrels. And they have them all, about 250 of them, in this wonderful publication, and there's a bunch from the year that we're looking at in the podcast. I've already, I think, referred to this collection twice in the podcast already. They don't transcribe every single document, but they transcribe a lot of them. And so this was a really excellent opportunity for me to confirm my understanding of the probata, because they expanded the abbreviations in the probata in their transcription for today's document, which is really nice. And also I was able to be sure of the Latin words, because the document is in Latin. And so this one I can actually come back to later on if I get stuck with certain abbreviations or paleography in other Latin documents. And I have to keep remembering that they've done this for a few different Latin documents. Oh yeah, one time, now I'm remembering, earlier in the podcast, I used their transcription in order to figure out real stumper. Gosh, what episode was that? I don't remember. We're on episode number 141 now, so it's getting a little bit tough to draw them out from my memory. Okay, in any event, what I love about this document is that not only is it about music, but it's also connected to the theme of the interfaith context of Iberia in the Middle Ages and of the Crown of Aragon in this particular time period. And then it also draws in a little bit of economics too. So we've got a lot of themes going on here converging, and also the theme of co-rule. All right, so let's see. Where do I even begin? Well, let's see. First of all, let's talk about the register. It's Register 1827. It's a commune register. So the kind of stuff that was not merited as that did not merit, that's what I'm trying to say, a secret seal. So it's matters that were more businessy, humdrum, I guess you could say, and did not require that added security or the added prestige of the secret seal. The documents in the commune register were more commonly handled by court officials, and a lot of them are ones that I think Joan and Violant would never have really gotten involved with all that deeply. Although we'll have to kind of think about this one, today's document, in regards to whether maybe today's is an exception to that because of the relationships described in the document itself. All right, let's see. It's folio 130R, and the whole document is in the middle. And so we have a nice one-pager today. And the probata is a scribe that isn't very familiar to me. It's Johannes de Robiol. And then the abbreviated part of the probata expanded out is ex provisioni facta per vice cancellarium. So the vice chancellor. So saying from the provision made by the vice chancellor. And the vice chancellor's name is at the very end, Franciscus Sacosta. Yeah, I think Francisco Sacosta was a pretty busy fellow. He's like doing a lot of work. Well, maybe the scribes are doing most of the work. I'm not sure. All right. Anyway, the document itself concerns a troubadour named Jonas Samuel. So Jonas Samuel was from Lleida, and it turns out that he found himself in a financial dispute with somebody named Yusuf al-Paperi. Yusuf al-Paperi is identified in this document as a Jew of Lleida. So the reason why we have Joan intervening in this matter is because of the direct connection in governance between the aljamas and the monarch. No intervening authorities, like no municipal government, no provincial government was in between them. So the letter begins, Johannes, etc., and then immediately identifies the recipient, which is the Bailiff of Lleida. Now, or the lieutenants, so or his lieutenant, locum tenenti, eius locum tenenti, or his lieutenant. So the Bailiff of Lleida is being instructed to go find Yusuf al-Paperi, and he's also identified as the son of Leonis al-Paperi. So this is involving a aljama in Lleida, and now we get to the dispute. A troubadour by the name of Jonas Samuel, who I think we can pretty much conclude that this is a Jewish troubadour. I'm pretty sure because of the name, because of the fact that we've got... Now, he's not identified in this document as a Jewish troubadour, but I'm pretty sure that because of what we see in the document and his name, he was a Jewish troubadour in the service of Violant. So the phrase is Minstrerium inclite Jolandis regina Aragonum consortris nostra carissime. A minister of the illustrious Violant, Queen of Aragon, our most dear consort. So here we have the Latin form of Molt cara companiona. So Jonas Samuel, a troubadour that was connected to Violant, because both Joan and Violant had their own set of troubadours that were identified as the troubadours of their houses. this particular troubadour said that Yusuf al-Paperi, a Jew of Lleida, owed him money. So the dispute is over what's identified in the document as 10 liures. Well, actually it says libras. So it says decem libras et novem solidos. And in the summary of the document that was written by Tranxiodania and Bailiff of Lleida, the amount is identified as liures, like pounds, 10 pounds and 9 sous, also known as solides. So how much was that? Well, my touchstone for understanding the currency and its value is a way early episode, one of the first episodes, if not the very first episode of the podcast, where we have a financial record from Violant about a payment to one of her bakers. So for 3 months of work, the baker was paid 356 solides. The total number of solides that is in dispute in today's document is 209, because there were about 20 solides for each liure. So 209 solides. So it's kind of like, 2 months of work for a baker was what was in dispute here, you could say. So it's a lot of money. And it apparently transpired that the vice chancellor, at least, the vice chancellor of Joan's court, heard from this troubadour in Violant's court that this financial dispute was distressing Jonas Samuel, I guess. And so, or basically Jonas Samuel was like, I've just got to appeal to higher authorities. I'm connected to the monarchy, so I'm gonna see if I can pull some strings and get this guy that owes me money to pay up. Yusuf al-Paperi owes me money. So we've got this really interesting connection between a lot of the people, but the question is, how much did Joan and Violant know about this? Is it possible that the troubadour Jonas Samuel could have just gone directly to the vice chancellor, and that the vice chancellor would have handled all this, and then maybe just, in a long list of items of business, mentioned it to Violant and or Joan? Is that a viable scenario for this? I think it is. But I don't know. Like, when you've got this crossover, I feel like there's a stronger chance that we can see the interaction between Joan and Violant at work. So it seems to me more likely that Jonas Samuel, the troubadour, would have notified Violant that he wanted to have the vice chancellor activate the bailiff in Lleida on his behalf, and that Violant would have informed Joan that this was being done for one of her troubadours. Seems to me like it's a little bit of a stretch to say that Joan and Violant would not have been involved in this, because it involves someone that is moving between them in a way. Because it's Joan's vice chancellor, the order is going out in Joan's name to the Bailiff of Lleida. So I think we can conclude that in this particular commune document, one that if you're just looking at the type of register, you would say, Joan and Violant, they don't really get involved in this stuff all that much. Actually, we see something exceptional going on here with this particular issue. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Historian's Notebook, Season 1, Molt cara compagnona. If you are leaving with more questions than you arrived with, I've done my job. Goodness, you might be wondering things like, well, what did Jonas Samuel's music sound like? Yeah, we'd have to research more about Jewish troubadours in the Crown of Aragon and late 14th century troubadour music, which I know a little bit about, but not too much, and it's hard to know what it would have sounded like. And also you might be wondering, did Jonas Samuel get his money back? Not sure if we're ever going to find out. Questions abound. And remember, when that pile of questions gets frustrating, the motto of the Historian's Notebook is, of course, dissatisfaction guaranteed for that very reason. Visit the website to see an image of today's document and additional show notes, and listen again tomorrow to hear about the next day in the first year of the reign of King Joan I of Aragon and Queen Violant de Bar. In the meantime, take care.